Oh, good morning. Good morning. My name is Alex Polowin. I am my 97th year. Actually, I've turned 97, and my birthday was April the 15th. I came to Canada as an infant in 1928, and I immediately fell in love with Canada. And so my talk is going to be mainly about that. While 17, I decided that I was big enough to get into the Navy and fight an enemy. And mainly, I'm repeating what one of the wonderful prime ministers said. Nobody joins up to fight for Canada directly. They join up to fight for their nephew Jimmy or their niece Joan. And this motivates them to fight for Canada. And likewise, it was for me. I had a couple of uncles in Europe that my mother told me saved my life because I was living far from the city of Vilnius, and they hitched up a horse and drove me in when I had double pneumonia. And I always felt guilty that I had to repay them, and that's what I did. But I'm going to start from square one. I I joined HMCS Huron in the summer of 1943, and prior to that, I served on a corvette for not too long, HMCS Pictou. So you can imagine joining the HMCS Huron, which was one of our big ships. We considered it, Canadians, Navy personnel considered it a big thing, and I was thrilled. And I was of the opinion that most Canadian people thought of us as only a North Atlantic Navy corvettes that were really oversized bathtubs when you come to think of it. But they did the job. They were very necessary and very, very important. So I got on the Huron in the summer of 1943. We were commissioned in Newcastle on Tyne. Lady Minto from Montreal was given the honor, throwing letting loose the bottle of champagne, and HMCS Huron was born. It was a tribal class destroyer. You can see just by the name HMCS Huron, they were an all-purpose vessel. We carried three twin-mounted .47 guns, one 4-inch mounted gun, high angle, low angle, meaning it could fire at aircraft. It could be adjusted, and that was it. And we carried 4 torpedoes. And we left the builders' grounds, and we were built in Newcastle on Tyne. We went to Scapa Flow, and Scapa Flow then was famous for the very great large British Navy and the great big Navy ships, battleships from 35,000 tons down. It really felt good. Being a teenager, and I just thought I was selected to serve on this ship. There were only a couple of them in the Navy. It was brand new. It kind of smelled like an automobile, a new automobile that you get the first time you get into it. And met people on the crew. I met all the crewmates that I had, and I was assigned a certain mess. That's where we ate. Where we ate, and approximately around where we slept in hammocks. And we got going. We were doing what's called evolutions. We were going to put all the equipment on the ship on trial. The guns, the torpedoes, the engines, everything on that ship that was being used was put on trial. And after passing all those tests, we joined a group. We started doing naval sweeps off the coast of Norway. There must have been 50 ships. They were the Huron the Haida, the Iroquois. There were there was 4 British destroyers, 2 Polish destroyers called Bliskovitz and Bjorn. We were we were in search of their largest battleship that had 35,000 tons. Couldn't find it. It went into a Western European port. It was eventually sunk by our Air Force. They carried bombs that bounced. It bounced on the water until it hit it. And when it hit it, that was the end of it. But prior to being the end of it, there were 4 British frogmen who got under the net to prevent ships from going through. They swam underneath it and placed explosives in that ship, which put it out of commission for a while, but it never operated again. They all got to the Victoria Cross. They were all murdered by the Nazis. Now, that was the end of these people, the end of that ship. But to get back to what we did, we started doing convoy work to Murmansk, Russia. The very name frightens me. Now, more than then, now I'm very much on the elderly side. Then I was very much on the youthful side, being a teenager. And it was part of the game then, to act brave, even if you weren't, which I wasn't, but I always try and act. And we started doing convoy work to Murmansk, Russia. That's where it went. We went into a body of water called Kola Inlet. And then we would anchor or buoy in a town outside of Murmansk. We wouldn't stay long because it was much too dangerous. Much too dangerous because you could hear bombs drop from Stuka dive bombers in Norway. You could hear all the way where we were. So we were there less than 24 hours. And back, the weather was just horrible. You'd come off watch as a seaman, and you had icicles down from your nose. The spray got into your nostrils, froze, more spray got onside that. You looked like a walrus when you came down looking back at it. And it was so good to get off watch. And we did that for 3-4 trips up that year, 1943. On the last trip in 1943, there was a plan to get the battleship, the last Nazis working battleship called the Scharnhorst. It was approximately 27,000 tons. And the plan was to send our convoy close to the Norwegian coast and use it as bait so the Scharnhorst can come out and try to get it into combat with us. And we looked like a pushover. That's what has happened in the past. But behind our convoy was 3 British cruisers. Those are warships up to about 12,000 tons. They carried 6-inch guns. And that was after our convoy. Behind them was the great British battleship, the Duke of York, 35,000 tons, the largest British battleship afloat then, or the largest battleship afloat in the world at that time. So this is what we did. They cleared lower decks. That was a Navy term. The boatswain's mate comes around and blows his whistle. Clear lower decks. And then the captain came out and he gave us a talk. And he told us what we were going to be doing, that we were after the Scharnhorst and there'd be a schedule on the bulkhead telling us how far we've gotten. I was sort of going back rather than going forward. And that's how we knew where we stood. Every day on that chart, there would be the mileage we put on. And believe me, it was a horrible fear. We were used to the North Atlantic battle, uh, the North Atlantic battle, corvettes were also part of the thinking. Well, this is the whole Canadian Navy, but it wasn't. And we were part of the Navy that was in all types of combat, uh, underwater submarines, other ships, and we carried torpedoes. If we had to use them, we used them. And as I mentioned earlier, back to the end of the year, this was on December 26, 1943. And my situation then was I was lookout back in a quarterdeck and had a set of binoculars. That was my position. And there was a depth charge rack right beside me. And if the anti-submarine detectors picked up a submarine and they piped down and told me to let go, I would just pull the wire and the depth charge would go. I'd adjust it to the amount of feet they tell me. But that didn't happen. What I did get a call was from the CBO's office on the bridge, confidential book office, that meant, to come up and get a silhouette of the Scharnhorst. And my heart was pounding. Here I am, a teenager, and one of the biggest acts that any teenager could have, especially the way I felt. I went up to the CBO's office, got a silhouette of the Scharnhorst, and I went through the decks, and there was about 20 people, all flaked out. People who were never seasick. The stress made them that way. The stress made them become seasick, helped to make them become seasick. And a fellow by the name of Folk, his family name Folk, said to me, "Why don't you dry up? You're a young punk. I've got a wife and 3 kids. So just take it easy." And I did. I went back to my action station, which was a twin on the A gun, which is forward on the forecastle. It was the worst gun to be on because the ship rolled and listed and went forward and went, you know. And to be honest with you, the person that was on that gun before couldn't handle it. He just cracked up, and I was his replacement on that gun. So this is the way it went. And prior to that, there was a whole crew that was shook up because we were getting near to by the log that they had on the bulkhead. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, on the 26th of December 1943, I knew that the Scharnhorst went down. We were a good distance away from it. We were part of the team, just like a football team. We got 12 players and 1 ball carrier. The same thing with the type of work we did that day. 2 Norwegian destroyers, Stored and Scourge, got out. The reason they were chosen is because they carried 8 torpedoes each, and we only carried 4, and they were faster than we were. They went in, they altered course. After firing all the torpedoes, they hit the Scharnhorst, and the Scharnhorst began to list. And behind them were the 3 cruisers that went in and tangled with the Scharnhorst, fired their guns at them, and they got some hits. And one of them also got some hit. X gun, which is the second last gun astern, was hit, and the crew were unfortunately murdered. But the Scharnhorst was hit, and 50 kilometers behind it, 50 miles behind that was the Duke of York. And the Duke of York came in with one shell. It hit it while it was already sinking. It was listing, and we have a picture here to show you. Well, I wanted to show you a picture of the Scharnhorst sent to me from a member of a book club. He was from Austria, and he sent it to me. And here's a picture of the Scharnhorst. I believe it was taken from a painting, but that's actually what happened to it that day. And I really, really felt like it was a great, great day. But when I think of the 2,200 lives that went down with it, 2,200, now it was a guy not so young. And I think about it, and I think how unnecessary wars were. And I went to France as a celebration of D-Day, and I was chosen to meet Mrs. Merkel, or shake hands with her, with our beautiful little Queen, Prince Philip, who just passed away recently, Obama, and Mrs. Merkel. And when I had my hands in Mrs. Merkel's hand, it felt so beautiful. Felt so beautiful that I can't judge that whole nation by the people who I fought against during the war. There were some excellent people, and it really made me come down to reality and forget about what people were like then and try to remember that there's room for everybody to have change, and that's the way I feel. Thank you very much for allowing me to express myself on that basis. Well, the Scharnhorst was sunk. We made 2 more trips like that, and the water didn't give up. There were people that were so seasick, some of them. I recall about one person who was outside to get fresh air, and he was lying down. He was so sick that he begged to be thrown over the ship's side. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a person being that sick? Can you imagine the suffering I endured listening to that person? Because it only reminded me that I'm going through this, not regarding being seasick, but all other activities with it. At any rate, he got well. He got well, and we laughed about it later, but that's the way it was then. So we made 2 more trips there. Can you get, excuse me 1 second. Can you get my harmonica? Well, I mentioned to you about the last 2 trips we made, and I mentioned to you about the feeling about that seaman that begged to be thrown over the ship's side. Of course, we didn't do it, and he lived to speak about it afterwards, thank God. And that was the end of our trips to Murmansk. And after that, we went our new role, number 10 destroyer flotilla. We were called. There was 10 of us warships, and that's where we were. And I'd like to play a little wartime song that I always like to end off my talks. And I want to play a song that's over 100 years old, still very active today, Lily Marlene. Thank you very, very, very much. I'd like to tell you about the Yushakov Medal. It's the it's named after a very famous Russian admiral, sort of like Lord Nelson to the Russians. It's given what they think the highest service, naval service one could perform for Russia. Well, we did that for Russia. It worked out being that we're doing it for ourselves to help shorten the war. Here is the Yushakov Medal right over here. Right over here. I believe I got that about 7 or 8 years ago, right in the center block in Ottawa. And here is the certificate for the Yushakov Medal right here. There it is. And over here is the last service medal I got from him right over here. Right over here. I've got a number of them, but I should get miniature medals because there's only so many I can put on with the tunic I'm wearing now. This is the last medal I got, Canadian I got. This is a sovereign medal. It used to be called the Governor General's Award for community work. And this is what I got for speaking in schools. I've spoken in a couple of hundred classrooms and government departments and other departments in the last 30 years or so. I'd like to share that with you. And if there's any questions anyone would like to ask, please do. Any question.
Hey, Alex, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and we're going to collect some information for historical purposes. What was your service number?
V33775.
And what were the basic roles and duties that you had aboard the destroyer?
I had many duties. I was on all types of guns. I was on Oerlikons, which are 20 millimeter. I was on 4.7, and also I was, they called me captain of the magazine. And when we were hit, I was down there when we were hit once, and it was a horrible feeling. You felt like a trapped rat. Patrick Budge, Lieutenant Patrick Budge, who got to be an admiral, came up and shouted "Abandon the magazine," and that was the greatest freedom in the world that I can get out of that magazine that was beginning to flood up. There was one kid on there by the name of Eldon Smith, who collapsed. I brought him to. I started singing to him a song that was popular then. Good morning, we danced the whole night through. Good morning to you. I don't know if it helped, but he stuck around for a couple of years. The poor kid had a heart attack, and I didn't know it. He died at about age 23. Came from Cape Breton. A wonderful kid.
Alex, what was your date of birth and where were you born?
April 15th, 1924, I was born outside of Vilnius, a village called Nachunichkus. Nachunichkus. Now, it was called Nachunishuk when I was born because it was part of one of the states that Russia took over.
Alex, other than Lily Marlene, what popular songs would you play on the harmonica?
Well, I played a number of songs. Would you like me to play one?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is a very old tune. Thank you very much. The person that sold me the first harmonica would be very proud if he could listen to this. But that was something like almost 90, 80, well, about 85 years ago.
So, Alex, I'm going to ask you one final question for this interview session. What do you want future generations to know and remember? What is your parting message for those that see this exhibit in the museum?
You know, we're living in the greatest country in the world with probably the most acreage for the population in Canada. Beautiful, beautiful country. The opportunities we've missed out on a lot of things that the rest of the world is going through, and we don't think of it. And I hope they think about it. And when I was these people's age, I was the same way. But I'm seeing reality now, and I love this country more every day. Every day I feel a certain freedom about it. I suppose listening to the news, what's going on in other countries, is the teacher of that, and I like the future generation to think of that. You know, because I was young once too, you know, and I have nothing bad to look on. I'm just thinking in terms of the good things I lived through that were brought on by the bad things. You know, depressions and one thing and another. But depressions never existed because they were far outweighed by the good things.
Well, Alex, I want to thank you for your time and your stories and your willingness to share memories that can be extremely painful but are absolutely critical for those who have the ability to enjoy their freedoms thanks to your uh, sacrifices. So, on behalf of those who've asked for this interview, I want to express a sincere thank you and express my deep gratitude. And we'll call this a wrap. And you and I will carry on with our regular hangouts. So, just for posterity, I want to thank you for all your time, Alex.
Thank you very, very, very much. It's a great, really a great honor. I want to just tell the people that something that's going to last forever about me. I have the honor of having a street named after me in a part of the area called Barhaven, Alex Polowin Avenue. My God, what a wonderful, wonderful gift I received for my grandchildren now, my grandchildren to come. It's here forever. And for that, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you.